Welcome to Philanthropy SA. This is a podcast about and for the philanthropic community in San Antonio and South Texas. We introduce organizations and people who are making an impact in the community. Beneficent Financial is proud to sponsor this podcast, and it is our hope that you enjoy this conversation about the impact we can have. The goal is to edify and inspire. Now please join our host, Dan Rebman.
Hi, welcome to Philanthropy SA. I'm your host, Dan Rebman. Very pleased to be joined today by Harriet Helmle. She is recently retired, but most importantly, relevant to today's discussion, was one of the founding members of Social Venture Partners San Antonio. And we also have the executive director of SVPSA, Becky Dinnin, with us. Becky, thanks for being back.
I'm so excited. I got to be on the first one, and now
I think
at least today I'm the last.
This is your third.
So far, that's my third.
I think that's such
Do
a
I get
record.
a jacket?
I don't know. We got to come up with something like Saturday Night Live does for like the multiple hosts. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll figure out something. So anyway, Harriet, glad you're here today.
Thank you.
Now, folks have heard about Becky going back a couple episodes. So, go back and check out one of the earlier episodes, and episode 1, you'll hear all about Becky. But Harriet, talk a little bit. You're native San Antonian.
Yes.
And so we were talking earlier about, your native San Antonian pre-med center, all kinds of stuff that's going on in this great
Pre-1604.
There you go.
Pre-freeways.
There you go.
Back in the days when we had covered wagons.
Okay.
Long time ago.
So talk about San Antonio. What makes it such a great place to live?
San Antonio is a wonderful place to live. I lived in Houston after college for 10 years, and it was very difficult to volunteer and do anything philanthropic-wise. But growing up in San Antonio, you have people like Bartell Zachary and H.B. Zachary and the Mays family, the McCombs family, all these wonderful families, General McDermott from USAA. It was such a philanthropic community that when you get to a city like Houston, where it's difficult to sign up to do anything, it just leaves a big void. And you don't feel complete. I don't. I feel like I need to be doing something, giving back somehow. So San Antonio is a great place to come back to, having experienced that. And so I was really happy that was a long time ago, though.
Well, sometimes you don't appreciate a place until you've been someplace
That's exactly
else.
Right. That's exactly right.
So, Becky, tell me how you met Harriet.
Harriet and I first crossed paths, I think, when I was at the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
And we were working on the Women's Awards program.
Yeah.
And she received one of the awards. And she also was kind of in a great class that year with several different people. The year after that, I got to know her because we would always do a tribute video about each one. And I thought, well, gosh, that's amazing. But she also sat on that committee for many years after that. 1 year led by Mary Rose Brown, one led by Sonia Medina Williams. And so she was sort of my introduction into meeting people. She's opened doors for me. She's called me and said, hang in there, girl, a lot. And so we've just been very dear friends ever since then. And that was probably almost 20 years ago.
Very good. And tell us a little bit about Social Venture Partners San Antonio. Give us that, 20,000-foot view, because we're going to get into the origin story with Harriet momentarily. But you do the best job of telling people what Social Venture Partners is and does. So why don't you do that for us, please?
Well, Social Venture Partners San Antonio is one of 30 different affiliates around the world. But what we do uniquely is we give our time, our talent, our treasure, our ties and testimony to nonprofits. We feel like there's a greater return on the impact of our financial giving when we dig a little deeper and roll up our sleeves a little bit and get to know those nonprofits, understand the community, learn a little bit about what causes are and how we can get closer to upstream and helping with things, their crisis points before they get to be there. And a lot of the work we do is also just learning about a lot of different types of nonprofits and the role they play in the whole system. But this was started 10 years ago. And the reason we're doing this is it's our 10th anniversary. And it happened because of 3 of our founders, and Harriet is one of those. She'll tell us a little bit about how she discovered it, but this is it's just a wonderful place to be. We've had a lot of impact since then, we'll get to later. But I want her to tell the story about how this crazy thing got started.
Absolutely. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I don't even need to be involved here. Well, she teed you up to talk about how Social Venture Partners San Antonio came to be.
Well, it was 10 years. Well, actually, it was probably closer to 11 or 12 years ago. My niece, who lived in Seattle, and she worked for Starbucks in their executive group, and one of their primary customers was a guy named Paul Shoemaker, and we called him Shoe. And he would always go into Starbucks. Well, he kept talking to my niece, and he brought her his book one day called the I Can't Not Do book. And he gave it to my niece, Gail, and she looked at it and kind of laughed, and she said, well, I'm not your person, but I have an aunt in San Antonio, Texas, and she is a can't not do person. So if it's okay, I'm going to send her the book. And he says, that would be great. We're trying to get a chapter going in San Antonio, and we didn't have any contacts. So ironically, John Eady, who was head of Covenant at the time, or started Covenant, he got a book from a friend and a client in Austin that was involved with SVP in Austin. And so he read the same book over the holidays. So we come back into the office after the holidays, and he walks into my office, and he shows me this book, and I pulled it out of my drawer, and I said, you mean this book? And so that's really, we said, we got to do it. We just got to do it. So it was too great an opportunity to pass up. San Antonio really needed something like that to kind of help the nonprofits. And, of course, shortly after that, we went into COVID, and that's when I think SVP really shined. And I really believe that we helped a lot of those nonprofits not go under.
Yeah, make it through COVID and all the stresses and that kind of thing. So, Social Venture Partners is getting started, and so you all have like all this money, and you go out and you hire an executive director right away.
We didn't have a lot of money.
What?
We didn't have much to pay Becky.
No, but didn't you run it before Becky came on board?
Yes, I did. We did raise some money, some seed money. I wish we had made more money to pay her, but the purpose of SVP also was not to give money to nonprofits, but to give our talent. Yes, give some treasure, but to give them our talents and help them develop their own nonprofit and strengthen that. And that's when Becky came in and developed the fellowship program, and we did Catch a Fire and all of these things that really started benefiting the nonprofits. But the purpose was initially to find people, business people that had talent to donate to the nonprofits.
Absolutely. And I can assure everybody that Becky is still tragically underpaid, and that her superpower is a high tolerance for pain.
Yes.
So that's, we're blessed to have her with us. So Social Venture Partners is getting going, and y'all are kind of like, okay, we're going to form this thing. We're going to do this thing. How did you start getting partners? How did you get people to come on board and join?
You just put the pressure on them. We started with our clients. we explained the mission of SVP and why it was important, the uniqueness of it in San Antonio, because there wasn't another organization like SVP. And so they were happy to get involved. They were happy that they didn't have to do a whole lot, but they were happy to donate money and get us going. And the concept was an easy concept to sell in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm. And then how did Social Venture Partners expand beyond, just the Friends of Covenant?
Becky.
Yeah. It was interesting when we first started talking about this, it took me a minute to kind of figure out the structure, and I'm an ops person. So I was trying to figure out how does this work? And those first, 20 partners that had really seeded the organization, they'd spent 3 years though learning about San Antonio. And so what they did with their time at first was invite community leaders. They had the city manager come in. They had a professor from Trinity come in and talk to them. And so they had these meetings to where they were saying, we're going to learn about the nonprofits in San Antonio, learn what some of the key crisis points are in San Antonio. They did that first, which was so smart. And to ask themselves, then what do we want to invest in? They started looking at causes and things that are upstream that they could invest in. And that early group before I came on decided that children and education were something they wanted to lean heavily into, because knowing that is something that if you can provide services early in life, especially for youth that may not have a lot of opportunity, and that's where they found Youth Code Jam. Yep. And so that first grant was Youth Code Jam. I understand there was a good debate on what they were going to invest in, and they came back around to, we also want somebody who's doing something innovative. And at the time, Youth Code Jam was brand new. Debbie Fitzenmeyer, their founder, was holding coding weekend classes for kids with autism and their parents, because she also had a child with autism, was on the spectrum, and knew that coding is a future job opportunity for her son. Long story short, her son is now very highly employed in California, doing great and amazing things, and Debbie Fitzenmeyer still works with us. But that was the first investment, and I think the success of that and having 7 or 8 partners and really dig into what they were doing and learning how to grow that nonprofit was just as much a learning experience for Debbie and Youth Code Jam as it was for our whole partnership. And so I was lucky. I came in right after that to begin to just build the network and tell the story. And we now had this great success story. That was 2019. Mm-hmm. We started to do another round of grants and selected 3 nonprofits and 3 programs, and they all failed. We just crashed and burned. Of course, it was during COVID, and a lot happened that you couldn't predict. And we just kept thinking, well, gosh, how do we get fooled? And, what did we do wrong?
We learned from it.
And we learned a lot. And we decided that we need to know them better. And that's what gave birth to the fellowship. We started giving our time and talent in a cohort of nonprofit leaders all at the same time to teach them operations. But we were learning on the other side, who are these strong nonprofits? Who are the ones that really have great leadership and their boards are behind them? And that's now how we make our funding decisions. But we also have this extensive value in reaching 25 nonprofit leaders every year through the fellowship. It helped build our capacity. It helped us reach more nonprofits all at one time. So it just seemed to make sense. COVID made that happen, forcing us into, gosh, now what do we do? That pivot that we all had to do made us a lot more successful.
Well, and as we're recording this, we're actually doing the reviews right now on the applications for the upcoming fellowship.
Yeah, so looks like a great new class. I'm very excited. This will be the 7th class.
Wow.
We've had 116 nonprofit executives go through it so far, and they're just amazing people. They're the future of San Antonio, and I can't say enough about the young men and women who go through the fellowship.
And with 10,000 nonprofits in San Antonio, we only got like 9,900 more to go.
Yeah.
So,
And what's amazing is some of the very established nonprofits are also very excited about the fellowship and about sending. Initially, it was pretty much the CEOs, executive directors, but now they're interested in sending some of their team to go through the fellowship because they see the value of that.
And they're preparing for the next generation of leadership. Mm-hmm. Everybody sees it as a part of their succession plan. That's such a compliment to us. It's an honor to be in that place.
Very much so. And just by way of background for those who aren't familiar with the fellowship, it's a gathering of nonprofit executives that meet once a month It basically runs a school year, and they meet one day a month, and each day is kind of dedicated to different elements of running a nonprofit. So it can be financials or fundraising or governance and board relations and all this stuff. We don't have to really go over much programming. People have that down. They know what the services they provide and how they provide them. We talk about how to run the organization and make sure that it's viable and make sure that it's something that, people who want to make grants are going to want to support, and how to, find those and that type of thing. So great program. Very glad that Social Venture Partners is in there doing that. So we're going to get into the rest of the origin story here with Harriet in a minute. But first, we're going to get a quick word from our sponsor.
What legacy will you leave? When those who come behind you follow in your footsteps, where will the journey lead? Will it lead to faithful stewardship of time, talent, and treasure? Will they become the beneficiaries of a life that was blessed beyond measure? Our legacy is being created with every decision, and what we invest in reveals our priorities and our convictions. In the end, did we build on reaction or intention? Short-sightedness or long-term vision, survival and scarcity, or did we build with enough margin to live a life on mission? You see the future and the need to prepare. You have a dream of the life that you want to live and to leave, and we're here to help you get there, to a place where you're truly leading life instead of allowing life to lead you, where investments are personal, multiplicative, and purposeful, to a place where you live a life of impact long after you've passed the baton, and what you set in motion continues with longevity after you're gone. It is possible that in the pursuit of purpose, we can leave a legacy of philanthropy and a lifestyle of service where you made every act of kindness count and every investment made the world a better place, no matter the amount. This is what success can look like when we team with intentionality to achieve more than we ever thought we could, where our mission meets your life's vision and where you're set up to do well so that you can do good.
Thanks for joining us again today on Philanthropy SA. I'm your host, Dan Rebman, joined by Harriet Helmle and Becky Dinnin from Social Venture Partners. And we're getting ready to celebrate 10 years of Social Venture Partners in San Antonio. Becky, real quick, why don't you tell us about the event itself and what all is going to be involved and who we're going to be celebrating? Because Harriet will downplay what she's done. And
we're going to celebrate Harriet. We're going to celebrate her and John Eady and Justin Paul, our three very visionary founders of Social Venture Partners, and embarrass them with stories of how they've changed lives. And we'll talk a little bit during the program about what philanthropy means to them and how they developed that spirit of philanthropy. All three of them have very humble stories. And I think it's going to be a really great time for people to understand. A lot of people don't know Harriet's original, heard the story of what makes her tick, if you will.
Right. And this is a tease. You're not going to hear it today.
You're not going to hear it until we get there. And it's September 29th. And you can register on our website. You can call me. Most people who hear this, including your mom, will know how to reach me. But we are very excited about it. It's a lunch, so it's not anything that's at dinner or weekend. It's during your day. We hope that you can meet us there at Security Services Credit Union on the 29th of September.
Very good. This is like their big fancy building.
It's a fancy, cool place.
And you've driven by it and probably gone, wow, that's
and they're
really nice.
Very generous. Shout out to Security Service. They're one of our partners, our corporate partners. They're giving us that space because we're a nonprofit. A lot of people don't know that that's available to them. So I'll shout out to them for being so generous with their space.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. So, and people who have, like my mom, who have listened to a couple of my podcasts, know that I normally do ask the question, how did you get involved in philanthropy? And we intentionally did not ask Harriet that today because to hear the story, You got to come on the
Come to
29th. So there you go.
That's a tease. You better sign up.
It's good. It's
And
so
We're
good.
going to run out of spots.
And because it's going to be in such a cool venue,
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that there's plenty of opportunities for sponsorships and all kinds of stuff there.
Yeah.
So we definitely would love to have people there. It is actually a great way to get to see Social Venture Partners in action and just get to see what it's all about. And when you walk away, you'll know if that's something that you need to be involved with. I'll put it that way. So, but let's go back to this origin story a little bit. Harriet, so you and John are sharing that you've read the same book. You're going to do this. How did you decide what you're going to do first?
That's a great question. Because I never anticipated that they would point the finger and say, you are the new executive director. I have never been an executive director before, and I wasn't really sure what to do. So a lot of it was just intuition on what needed to be done. The first thing that needed to be done was find partners that would be willing to put up some money, serve on the board, because we had no board, serve on a board of directors, and give us guidance as we worked through this startup of this. I did talk to a lot of people like the Chamber, Medical Foundation, other nonprofits, San Antonio Area Foundation. They were a big help because they agreed to handle the money, which they're always happy to handle the money. But they gave us a lot of direction on how to get going. And then from there, it was recruiting partners, trying to tell the story. Mainly, we told the story. We gave out a lot of books on Can't Not Do. We talked a lot about the original chapters of SVP in Seattle and some of the stories that they had they were very compelling. And I think the San Antonio business community was interested in finding something like that they could really sink their teeth into. And like Becky was saying, in the beginning, we mainly heard from community leaders, other nonprofits, on what the needs were in our community, because we thought the first thing we need to do is we need to find out where we need to spend our time and our treasure. What is the part of the community that needs us the most? And that's when we zeroed in on children and education. And education has always been my sweet spot. That's something that's very important to me since I started San Antonio Youth Literacy many, many years ago. Kids have to learn how to read. That's crucial. And so I think that was important for me, but it was also the message that we got from community leaders, that we need to help develop children. We need to give them some structure, and we need to give the community some help there. So we learned a lot. Like Becky said, just listening to people that were working in the community. We had an amazing group of people that would come and talk to us and tell us their experiences and what they were involved in and how they were helping in the community. So from there, we had to develop a mission. And we quickly knew in 2016 that we needed an executive director, that this was bigger than my bandwidth and certainly bigger than my background and experience, which is finance, accounting, and investments.
You were done with your side hustle.
Oh, yes.
What you're saying. Well, Becky, we're talking about education and talking about children and that kind of thing, and you had mentioned upstream a couple times before, but why don't you kind of go over what, in the philanthropic world, you hear that a fair bit. What does that mean to you when somebody says we're going to try to deal with upstream issues? Yeah,
it's kind of nonprofit lingo. So
a little you all are getting on the inside now.
Yeah, sorry about that. When we talk about our mission statement says to address some of our community's most critical issues. And you can identify those, and they're the usual suspects of hunger, lower high school graduation rates. You will hear homelessness. You will hear food insecurity. when you talk about those as crisis centers, how do you get yourself into one of those situations? Well, there are a lot of families who live paycheck to paycheck, and then that's a little bit further upstream. And if you have a crisis come along, then that's when you find yourself maybe without a home. So you go a little further before that. Well, what causes that? Perhaps the mom and the dad may not have had the education opportunities that they needed to be able to get them through that challenge. Well, that's a little bit further upstream. If you go back to, well, they may have a learning disability. They might have dyslexia. They may have not had great English or math teachers. So that's where that youth education comes in hand, is making sure that our third graders, you hear that a lot, third grade reading level, is that data and science has told us that is a critical point in the life of learning in your brain development, that you become either a reader or maybe not. So there's a lot of people who spend a lot of nonprofit money and effort and programming on third grade reading levels. That's upstream. That's preventative, if you will. It's something that you do to keep people from falling into maybe the same pattern of poverty or into a rhythm of finding themselves in crisis. We probably all have family stories, even personal stories, where if we had maybe had a little bit better support in some area of our life, that we wouldn't have fallen into a crisis that we may have found ourselves in. And I'm sure that most of us have those stories. I certainly do. So upstream is more preventative. Mm-hmm. Sort of like your health. You go in and you do preventative stuff instead of getting yourself in the hospital.
Yeah, we want to treat the cause of the problem, not the symptoms of the problem.
Yeah.
The things that, and they need to get fixed, but the things like poverty and homelessness and those types of things start back further with something else that, if it had happened, that could have been prevented.
And we do that because we're talking about investment in community. The economic impact, another fancy Chamber of Commerce word, is it costs more if you're in crisis. Same thing as if you're in the hospital. It's more expensive than taking care of yourself earlier in life. So there's a tax benefit for being further upstream, if you will, in nonprofit work. And so, yeah, we use those terms a lot, but that's what we're talking about, is if you can teach a child to read by the time they're in the third grade, then 90% of the time they will find themselves in a better job. They will find themselves in something post-high school. It doesn't have to be college, but something more where they have an earned living, where they're not going to find themselves in crisis.
Yeah. So this organization emerges. You're doing all this good stuff, and you've stuck with it these 10 years. What are you looking forward to for the next 5 or 10 years out of Social Venture Partners, Harriet?
Expanding, recruiting more partners, because the more partners we have, the more we can do in the community. Getting Becky some help. So, because as we add programs, and I don't know, maybe we can go to more fellowship programs so that we're reaching out to more people. I think we haven't really touched on Catch a Fire. I think that's been an amazing addition to the things that we're doing and the services that we're helping nonprofits with. So I think expanding is really the goal. There, like you were saying, there's so many there's thousands of nonprofits in San Antonio, and some of them we don't know anything about them, and they need help. There's some of them that are small. We have helped a number of them. Becky could rattle them off, the ones that were really small nonprofits, but they're doing amazing work. And we want to keep those nonprofits going too, not just the big ones. But we can also provide help to the big ones that struggle to get leadership. I don't know. I mean, we don't do much in terms of helping pick leadership, but I think we can start really focusing on developing leaders that can move into these positions, and because we need them. We need leadership in the nonprofit world. Absolutely.
So we've had a chance to talk about a lot of stuff. What is something I didn't ask you that you were hoping you'd get a chance to talk about today, Harriet?
Well, let me think about that one. I don't know. I think you pretty well covered it. I wasn't. This is my first podcast, so I wasn't sure what to expect, other than to have a great conversation with you and Becky. And I think we've got the beginning of a great organization now. So I just hope that for the next 10 years we continue to grow and build and help even more nonprofits than we're already helping, which is quite a few.
Indeed we are. Okay, Becky, same question to you.
Well, I'm like Harriet. The more we have involved with this, the more partners we have, then the more time we can give, the more nonprofits we can know. We are a connected city. This is a city of a huge web of networks. And so every new partner brings to us their network, their peers, their neighbors, their colleagues. And with each new person, you see this large group of impact in ways that we can kind of expand the work. We talk about how we can grow, and one of the things we're leaning hard into, and Dan, you're helping with this, is we believe that philanthropy is more than somebody like Warren Buffett. Philanthropy is everybody. Giving your time is a philanthropist. It doesn't cost you anything. Giving your talent doesn't cost anything, and that's why this model is important to us. We want people's time and their talent, and yes, their treasure, because we know those three combined together make more impact. We have 25,000 people that move into San Antonio every year in our region, MSA. And we believe that there are a lot of those people who want to be involved with the community. They want to do something that matters with a little bit of their spare time. And we hope that Social Venture Partners is that place that they'll take a look at for the way to invest back in the community, to pay it forward, that kind of thing. That's my hope.
Absolutely. So if you want more information, you can go to svpsa.org and find all about Social Venture Partners and the things going on there, and get your calendar out and circle September 29th. And we're going to have a great event over lunchtime, and you're going to have an opportunity to hear the origin story. And I think equally as important is hear some of the stuff that's going on now and hear from some of the folks that have been touched by what these founders have done and what the impact that can be had. The reason that I like Social Venture Partners so well and am so deeply involved is because it's the one organization I can be a part of and reach out and touch many, many parts of the city and places and people that I would not normally get the opportunity to interact with. And so I just think that's huge and, very rewarding to be able to know that, we're helping so many different organizations help so many people around town. So on behalf of Philanthropy SA, this is Dan Redmond reminding you to do well so you can do good.
Thank you for joining us at Philanthropy SA. We hope you found something to inspire you during today's conversation. If you know organizations and people who are making an impact in the community, we would love to hear about it. Until next time, do well so you can do good.